If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or you've been following me on social media, then you know how passionate I am about women helping women and women supporting women. I've had the same female business partner, Randy, for 25 years, and our whole mission when it comes to our companies and really in life is to help other women thrive. So I am really excited for you to meet today's guest. We actually met on TikTok and developed an instant friendship. This was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and she's amazing. So before I bring her in, I just want to do a quick intro to who I am. My name is Andrea Donsky. I'm a nutritionist for 20 years. I'm a published menopause researcher, and I'm the co-founder of wearemorphus.com, a company that helps to empower you to take control of your health and symptoms with nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, and research. And talking about research, we have surveys on our website. So if you haven't filled them out yet, please do. We value your opinion, we value your responses and your insight, and we look forward to publishing more research. So please help us further our perimenopause and menopause research by going to wearemorphus.com, and you can click on the research tab at the top. Today I'm speaking with Tamsen Fadal. She's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, author, documentary filmmaker, and social media's midlife mentor. After more than 3 decades as a news anchor, Tamsen pivoted her career towards women's advocacy, guiding her audience of 4+ million people, 50 million monthly views through midlife and beyond. She's the creator and executive producer of the PBS documentary, The M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause, which has been viewed by over 1 million women across 350 plus cities and 42 countries, and the author of her new book, How to Menopause, Take Charge of Your Health, Reclaim Your Life, and Feel Even Better Than Before. And it's on the New York Times bestselling list. She's amazing. Now, here's Tamsen. Welcome back to Menopause Reimagined, Tamsen.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to see you.
I am so happy to see you too. And I'm happy to have you on because I know that this process for your book, you have your new book, How to Menopause. And I was blessed to be part, at least knowing what was going on when you were writing your book and being part of that process. And I'm honored that I'm actually in the book. So I'm so happy
So in the book.
I love it. I love it. All right. So let me start. I want to go back to the beginning. First of all, why don't you share your story? Because I talked a little bit about what it is in the bio, and I think it would be a great place just because it's like starting over in your 50s. And I think it's such an inspirational story.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I was working actually, and I had an incident that landed me on the floor of the ladies' room, a hot flash and intense heart palpitations and not knowing exactly what was going on. And I wound up not finishing the newscast, landing on the floor of the bathroom, going home like, what the heck just happened to me? And then I started doing this kind of deep dive into what was going on. Menopause, perimenopause. I didn't even know the word perimenopause, but menopause was not anything in my mind. I was like, is it stress? Is it my heart? Is it, is it my head? My brain had been like very different. I'd read word and I couldn't remember the word, and it would happen over and over again. So when I did this deep dive and eventually ended up at the doctor's office, I got a note in my patient portal that said, in menopause, any questions for my doctor? That was it. Not like, hey, this is a time in a woman's life when you're in menopause and here are 3 options or 2 options or hormone therapy or nothing. And so I felt like, oh my gosh, I guess this is what it's like, that's it. This is what happens. And I started down this road. And as a result of it, and that was like 2020, 17 months ago, I wound up leaving my job so I could advocate full out for it. Putting together a documentary and, the book as well now, which has been like, it's just been a big turning point when I thought I was just gonna, be a news anchor forever. And that was what I was gonna do. So life has a very funny way of, you know, changing quickly.
I love it. So talk about your documentary.
Yeah, of course. I am a co-producer of a documentary called The M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause. It's really become just kind of this really global movement initiative. It's been really interesting. When we set out to do a documentary, really, we were just trying to answer the questions of, what goes on during this time in a woman's life and some of the history of women's health. And that was really it. And we went out there looking, say like, hey, maybe funding, no funding, doors shut in our face. Hey, do you want to air this? People were like, it's a very niche audience. No one's interested in menopause. So it
Oh,
turns out we funded the majority of this documentary now ourselves until, we got to kind of into those final stages. And some incredible, women came forward. And we put it out there for communities to take. So if you were somebody that was like, hey, I want to show this in my doctor's office, in my community, in my hospital, whatever it is, in my living room, we would give it to people, license it for free, and they could bring together a group of people. And so that's what I've seen be the most exciting part of this, is that they had something to start the conversation, and the tagline is shredding the silence. And we were like, what does that really mean? Well, it means like we want women to start feeling open and honest about these conversations. And so we've been in 450 cities and 42 countries as of now. And we have had conversations that happen around the documentary after each one. So that means that, whether it's a room of 5 or a room of 500, it's been really special to watch. And we just had our first screening in Guam. We have one coming up in Cyprus. Yeah, it's really cool to see it happening. It's the women that are making it happen.
oh my gosh, I had so many women reach out to me, and even where I live, people were like, "Are you going to go see the M Factor? Are you going to go to the documentary?" Like, and I had even texted you, and I'm like, "Have you heard of this organization?" You're like, "No, it's like literally taking on a life of its own," which was so
Yeah.
incredible. People who, I didn't never, I didn't have menopause conversations with, were coming up to me and being like, "This movie's amazing!" Like,
Oh, that makes me
it
feel so
really
good.
did take on a life of its own. Like,
That makes me
congratulations.
feel so good. Thank you. Yeah, I really, it's interesting, like, we, as we know, there's so much more research that needs to be done when it comes to this space. But we went across the country and went to the top research facilities, the top doctors, whether it's Johns Hopkins, whether it was Weill Cornell. We were all over the place, talked with the Menopause Society, Dr. Stephanie Fabian. So we had some really incredible people that were part of the documentary, and incredible women that shared their stories. And so, but what I love the most about it is the conversations that happened afterwards. Like, I think that that's everything, because that's what people go home with, and that's the community that they're starting to build around this time. So yeah, there was a lot of organizations that be like, I'm sorry, I don't know. So I tried to reach out to as many as we could and provide any support, like, posters or artwork or whatever we could, because we're running on, like, well, we have like a small, it's really grassroots team, but it's been super exciting to see what's gone on. It's kind of blown my mind. Yeah, really.
What would you say are your biggest takeaways, whether it's from the movie or from your book, How to Menopause? Some things that would be, let's say, your biggest takeaways, and then also, what are some things that surprised you?
Oh gosh, my biggest takeaways are probably the fact that even though we continue to say so many women don't have knowledge of what's going on, it still blows my mind. Like, I still, if I've been all around the country. I'm on a 10-city book tour right now, and no matter what city I'm in, no matter how big or small the room is, there's still people coming up that are like so confused and feel so lost and so alone. So I'm grateful that we're breaking into all of these places for messaging. And then I guess with the film, I think what surprised me the most, which really like leaned into the book, is the fact that women don't really know their options. Like, they understand that there are hormones, but they have a lot of misinformation about hormones, or a lot of confusion about hormones. And then they know lifestyle needs to be a part of it, but then nobody really tells them when to start that, or what it is, or what that word really means, because we throw the word lifestyle around so much. So I think that those are the two takeaways that I realized in this. And then third, I think it's that women are like amazing when it comes to spreading a message like this. I don't know, nothing against men, but I don't know that men would have had the community and the group and the like gathering part that women have. But women took this documentary and have even done it now with the book, with book clubs, and are like, hey, we all got to get together and talk about this so we can help each other. And then after they do it, they want to help somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And like, that's super amazing. And so I think that that's what I've learned with it, is that the reach of women and the ability that they have to, I don't know, to share and teach and like and nurture, like bring people into their community that feel confused. I think it's been pretty phenomenal.
I'm, I mean, and you're the same, is we're huge on women supporting women and women helping each other, right? So this allowed a community to come together in a way
Yeah.
that had this commonality, right? To be able to watch a movie or to read a book, or, now that you're on your book tour, you probably hear so many stories from women. I mean,
Oh,
that's my favorite part too, when you're out there, you're meeting women and they're sharing, whether it's, even in your DMs and your emails, you
yeah.
probably get it from, from everywhere, as do I. And it's like, to me, And I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I find it so humbling, but also
Yeah.
like in this, and also like it's so comforting. And I use that in the sense of like when I was going through it, I actually thought I was the only one going through it, in the sense of like nobody else understands me, or are other people
Yep.
experiencing these symptoms, right? So it brings us together in a way that only we can understand.
Yeah, I 100%, I so agree with you, and I do hear these stories and, like, so we'll be in the middle of, a Barnes& and Noble or an independent bookstore, and we're having, like, the most intimate conversations, but they're so necessary, and it speaks to how much we've thirsted for this conversation, and then how raw women are willing to get to help each other and themselves, and that's really what's going on too, which I think is phenomenal.
So tell us a little bit about what to expect when you're reading How to Menopause.
Yeah, when you're no longer expecting. I wanted to make sure the book was applied to everybody, and it was more of a girlfriend's guide because I'm not a doctor, and I am a journalist, and that's my background. That's what I come from, and I love interviewing people. I'm always more comfortable on your side of it right now, doing the interview. But I really wanted it to be that. I wanted it to feel like it was something that no matter where you were in this transition, whether you're 35 or 55, that there's something for you. It's not just a book on what happens in the stage of menopause, but how to prepare for it, what you can do leading up to it to have a better experience, what to do in it, and then really the 360 approach that happens during this time in life. I mean, you and I know that it's not just what happens in the doctor's office, it's what happens, in the bedroom, it's what happens in your boardroom, in your workplaces, in your relationships. And I think that has been really clear to me, that's what we need more of that conversation about, is that 360 approach to living, because we want to do that in the right way. Menopause is one day, and then you've got all the rest of your life, and you want to do that the right way, in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I love the fact, we were talking before I hit record, you were talking about reaching the medical community. So talk a little bit about that. I think because to me, and from the research that I've done, as you know, Tamsin, is that 40% of women are dismissed, women are gaslit, women are told that they just have to deal with it, grin and bear it.
Yep.
So how are you reaching the medical community to help educate them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. The documentary has been picked up by so many people in the medical community, whether doctors, nurse practitioners, clinicians, people that are running different kinds of clinics or services. And I think what's been great about that is the fact that so many are like, hey, yeah, we didn't learn this. So we want more information, and we want to help everybody get more information. So it's not, there's no like pride or like, oh, that's a stigma wrapped around learning. And I think that that's the most important part right now. And so I've seen, I had a woman, I was at the Loopwell in New Jersey, right after the book launched, and this doctor stood up and she said, I came here because I didn't know who you were, but I had several women coming into my office carrying your book, telling me they saw the documentary and that they wanted to have this conversation. And she goes, so I have decided, I'm an OBGYN. I've decided now I'm going to dedicate myself to the practice of women in midlife. And I was like, and then she started crying, and I was blown away. Like, how, I'm not a doctor or I mean, how could, like, it was just like, um, I don't know, it was just really emotional, like seeing that kind of change, because she knew that people needed it. She was willing to like read it and learn the research, and came to tell me that. And I was like, this is amazing. And that's where women are right now, in terms of whether they're physicians or doctors or nurse practitioners, trying to learn this information to help women. And I think a lot of them, once they go through perimenopause or menopause, are even more prone to say like, oh, I so get it now. I used to have, when I was a younger practitioner, I'd see people come into my office and I didn't know what was going on. And now I really understand it.
And for so many of us, I remember when I was working at my other company, we targeted women with, with families and women who are raising kids. And there used to be those memes that went around that, moms are better detectives than like detectives themselves when it comes
Yes.
to looking at our kids' issues, right? Or helping our kids. And now is the time where we actually are doing the same for ourselves. Like, how do we help ourselves? Because when we're not feeling good, or we're in those weeds, and we're like, we have any of those 103 plus symptoms, it's like we just don't feel that, we don't feel good. We don't want to, we're not coming out as the best as we can. And I
Um,
think that's why it leads us to somewhere to be like, okay, I need help. And what are my
Yep.
options? And
Yep.
that's what's important for women. So that's, I love when I see women when they're empowered and they take control and they're going to their doctors, because that's where change is going to happen. And interestingly enough, I haven't released this survey yet, or the results of this survey yet, but we have a healthcare insight survey, and we now know that, I'm just waiting for, I want to get over 1,000 before I can actually have it published, but we know
Okay.
that women are going to their OBGYNs and their GPs when those are the first line of defense in terms of medical doctors and even overall. And we know, though, that they trust their OBGYNs more so than they do any other medical doctor. So it's really great to hear that OBGYNs, that women came to your talk, because they really
Oh,
are
yeah.
the doctors that women are going to. So we'll have
Yeah.
that hopefully, hopefully soon, in terms of
Great.
actually having it published. But right now,
Love
these
it.
are
I
how we.
love everything you're doing. You know that.
I know you do. And you're a
Yeah,
huge
I really
supporter.
do.
And actually,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a big shout out. Okay, so here's the thing. When I found out that I was going to be published, I told Tamsen, and you came to me and you were like, let's do it. Let's do a post. Let's get it out there. Let's do a post, and let's get the information out there. So I am so grateful to you that you did that with me. I mean, you have a massive following, as I mentioned, online, and you were so generous with me to be able to say, no, this is important. Let's share that you're now published, and let's share what that research is that you're publishing, right? Which is at the end
I'm
of the
so
day.
proud of you.
You're
I'm so proud of you. I really am. And and it's so funny every time I mention that, because I'll be like, well, there were 34 symptoms, but now there's new research from my friend. And so every time I say like 103 plus, they're like, oh, and so that takes the whole room. So it's just very, because it's so startling. And I said, well, there are estrogen receptors. I just said it the other night. It was a Friday night and I had an event. And I said, there's estrogen receptors all over your body, everywhere. And so I think that understanding that, knowing that, and learning more about our bodies and things that we just hadn't even paid attention to, or nobody else did, I think is game changing, and it is going to be game changing as we continue to see younger women come into this transition and start to approach it in a different way, really in a different way that's not from a place of fear.
What would you say? Yeah, and yes, by the way, 100%. What would you say if you're looking back? I remember when we did the talk, what was it, the TikTok, we did that thing,
That was like that was in the olden days, right?
I know that's how we met, actually, was on
Yeah.
TikTok. And then, like, I remember one of the questions we had asked, and for like that program that we did, and it was like, well, what would you tell your younger self? So what are some things that you would tell your younger self now that you're in menopause? You're like, okay, if I were able to go back,
Oh, yeah.
what would those things be?
First, I would stop beating up my body. Like I had this high low with weight constantly. I was like, starvation and not eating, and like lost my period. Then got, like I messed with my body, and and nobody told me. Like, everyone told me that was like, well, that was the goal, right? No one told me to go to the gym. Everyone's like, lose weight, sweat it out, reduce calories. So I think I would really look at a behavioral, smart mindset, lifestyle mindset. I think two, sleep, I would have not ignored. Like I used to be a news anchor, so we'd get up at, I'd be at work at 2:30 in the morning some days. And so I was like, oh, I can stay up late, I can get up early, it doesn't really matter. And so I think I'd pay attention to that. And then I always say, if it is not something that, like, I look at my problems nowadays and I'm like, if I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be bothering me in a week or a month, then I'm not worrying about it today. Like I
Mm.
really try to do that with the stress, because I know what stress does with cortisol levels. I understand what it does with your body. I lost a mother to cancer, so I really do try to pay attention to that stress part. And so I would tell my younger self, like, if it doesn't matter in a week from now, do not make it eat you up today.
I love that advice. And I think it's important because we know that we're more stressed now than we were,
Hard.
right? So it's like having that attitude. It's like my husband always says, don't worry about anything until you actually have to worry about it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of his
Yeah.
mantra, which I love. So I think that is fabulous advice.
I
Now,
love that.
you mentioned your job, getting up and being at work for 2:30. Like, what advice would you have for women right now who are in a situation where they're maybe working the overnight shift, or they're
Yeah.
have to get up super early?
Yeah, in any way that you can preserve anything, it's a great idea. Like I used to try to play catch up on the weekends, and what I didn't realize is like I should have gone to bed earlier, because I did have that schedule. That wasn't optional. That wasn't optional to move for a long time. And then I had, on the flip side of it, I worked until midnight, and then I wasn't home until whatever, 12, wasn't even in bed until 2 o'clock in the morning. So I really did have this, I should have scheduled a routine, and I didn't have that, honestly. So I'd have been in bed at, 8:30 or 9:30, that would have been doable for that. Even though it's not the perfect amount of time, at least it was something else. I got to a point where I'm like, nah, screw it. I'm not getting any sleep, so it doesn't matter. And so I think you're just kind of doing any little tweaks that you can do are so important. And to also make sure that, if you're not sleeping, to get up instead of toss and turn. If you're scrolling like crazy, which I am guilty of even to today, to try to turn that off so you can turn your brain off. And obviously, if you're getting up at 2 a.m, you're well before the lights, so you don't have to worry about getting outside first thing. Because I did that way too often. But I think implementing some of those practices and then finding those moments where you can, take it down a bit, or napping when you come home. And, there's some real benefits to those things.
I want to touch upon relationships before we end the interview, because I know that you're very open about it. And if you can give some advice to the women who are listening when it comes to relationships, I would so appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a big part of this time in life. Really, I do. I was divorced in my early 40s, and then I wound up getting remarried to an amazing guy, but at 50 years old. But I really didn't think that that was in the cards for me. I didn't think that anybody did anything past a certain age. So I've had quite the awakening myself, with understanding how quickly things can change. I am very aware when I look back at my other relationship that I stayed in it way longer than I should have. I didn't have enough respect for myself. I probably wasn't feeling 100% myself. I was in my early 40s, so who knows? But I guess I would say this: if you are in a relationship right now and struggling in some way, either, you know, try to go to therapy or try to figure out if there's something else going on. I know that low libido during this time is not an unusual conversation to be having, but have that conversation with your partner if you think that this relationship is worth preserving. And I would say, if you're not in a relationship, not to think it's too late, and not to think that like you have to go be who you were at 25 years old if you're getting back out there in the dating scene, or thinking you have to have some, mission or goal. Like, I never had a mission or goal with it. I just knew that, at some point I wanted to spend time with, with somebody. I wound up getting married, which I said I was never going to do again. But I say all that to say, like, I think you should still be very hopeful. Like, we've got a lot of years left. And it would have been a real shame if I had taken my own advice and said I'm never getting married again, because I wouldn't be the person I am today.
I love that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I think I always want people to go away feeling really not fearful about this time in life, and really looking forward to it, because there's this kind of place that you get where, when you get beyond some of those symptoms, you have this whole new freedom that opens up to you. And I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like, okay, I can tackle anything and everything. Not always easy, not always fun, but I've just figured out another way around things. And I didn't have that gear when I was in my 20s or 30s. And my gear in my 20s or 30s was sheer panic, always trying to like hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think this time in life teaches you something with wisdom, and not even slowing down a little bit, but trying to approach things, the right way.
I like that. And even like you, even slower, one step at a time, because we
Yes.
tend to get
One day
overwhelmed,
at a
right?
time.
One day at a time. So I love that. Tamsen, how can people find out how to watch your movie? How can they buy your book? Obviously you're on social media, if you could share that as well.
Yeah, of course, anywhere on social at Tamsen Fadal, or wherever Andrea is. And tamsenfadal.com, or howtomenopause.com is how to menopause is the book. Yep.
I love it. Thank you so much for doing this. And I want to congratulate you on all of your success. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer person. You're so sweet. And I'm just so happy for you.
Well, thank you. Back at you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Tamsen. Please go buy her book, How to Menopause. And if you haven't screened or seen the movie, The M Factor, please go see that as well. If you enjoyed the interview, please share it, because the more you share, shows you care. And please take a moment to leave a review of Menopause Reimagined, because when you do, when you rate and review our podcast, it sends it out to more people. So I would be super grateful. Thank you for spending the last little bit with me. I know there's a lot you could be doing, but instead you chose to spend your time with me. And for that, I am grateful. I'll see you at the next podcast.